Hey everyone, welcome back to a new video. I hope you had a great day. Let's take a look at some new malicious compliance stories. The first story is called Thanks for the Benefits. This happened a couple of years ago. I was working on a part-time basis in a small firm owned by friends. Pay was not very good, but the atmosphere was, and I was allowed to set my own timings, so life was good overall. Then a friend, whom I knew only through social media, approached me for a job in her company. Even though they were offering good money, I turned down the offer, as I knew I could not get the benefits I was getting in my current job. Plus the commute to the new office was very long. I would have to travel 2 hours one way and change 3 trains just to reach the office. A month later, the HR of the new firm approached me again. They offered me almost 4 times the money I was making, and I could set my own work hours. There was also extra pay for working overtime and on weekends. This was important, so I joined the new company. My friend did not know the terms of the new agreement I had with human resources. She used to act like I owed her big time for the opportunity I got. So one day I corrected her. I told her that I had turned down the offer she had been part of, and 1 month later I had had my own negotiations, and I got much more favorable terms. So I was here because her company really needed me, and not because of her. I didn't share the details of my agreement with her, but we both realized that she was making significantly less than me. This totally changed her attitude towards me. Now she wanted me out, and I was determined to stick through for at least a year, so she decided that she would make it very difficult for me to work, so that I quit on my own. She was my manager and was in charge of allocating work. Malicious compliance number 1. She started piling more work on me than any other member of the team, and I was happy to comply. She did not know that as part of my contract, I would be paid 1.5 times the hourly rate for every hour I worked overtime, and 2 times the hourly rate if any work was allocated to me over weekends or holidays. Every time she tried to ruin my weekend by calling me to the office unnecessarily, I happily complied. This continued till the time I left the organization and told her how much extra money she had helped me make. Malicious compliance number 2. After the long commute to work, I used to be hungry, so I developed the habit of stopping at the food court to pick up a glass of fresh fruit juice and carry it with me to work. My manager thought that this way she could harass me without actually seeming to do so, so she sent a notice that bringing liquids to the office was a hazard. Ironically, she used to have coffee delivered to her desk 3 times a day. I pointed out that the rule applied to her as well, and if I couldn't have my juice, she couldn't have her coffee. She had to literally spend an extra unpaid hour at work every time she wanted her special coffee. Meanwhile, I was happy to leisurely sit in the food court, have my glass of fresh fruit juice with some snacks, and then begin my workday half an hour later than usual. The next story is called Bad Way to Secure the Job. So, I work in the towing industry as a dispatch supervisor for a company that specializes in heavy equipment moves and trailers, on top of regular tow industry stuff like tire changes, boosts and lockout services. I have a manager who we will call Jeff. Jeff is a rough and tumble sort, a friend of the club if you catch my meaning. He is more likely to yell and scream, rather than commit to the customer service part of the job, which is my specialty, but that also extends to how he treats employees. My way or the highway. Well, Jeff seems to have this idea that he is the only one who can quote customers on either long distance, heavy equipment and trailer transports. He is not. For the record, every single dispatcher we have is perfectly capable of quoting the correct prices and booking calls, seeing as we do this every day that he is not around. But still he gets up in arms and yells if we take calls and set them up without his involvement. He's been with the company for 40 years, so he's embedded. But he literally does the exact same job the dispatchers do, and sometimes drives a truck to help out on the road. One day in particular, I take a call and quote a customer. Jeff loses it, starts flipping out about he is supposed to be taking all those calls. From this point on, I am to direct every call about heavy equipment, trailers or long distance moves to him, so he could retain his large salary and job security. I don't think he really thought that one through, so malicious compliance it is. After the end of his shift, send him a message with the name and number of the caller. Weekend, send him a message. Middle of the night, send him a message. He's on vacation, send him a message. Camping, send him a message. On a ride with his brothers, send him a message. As one would imagine, he couldn't keep up with the demand, and as a result we started to lose sales, constantly forgot things and customers would go elsewhere. Eventually the boss hears of it. He's normally a pretty hands-off type of boss. He signs the checks, sure, but most of the time he's out on his boat, ignoring the world. The boss calls him in to find out why he's been so off, and the manager attempts to throw me and my team under the bus. So I talk to the boss, explain exactly what was said. Thankfully, the boss has known him for 40 years and knows what he's like. So he understands completely and has a big chat with him about it. Result, he is no longer allowed to monopolize handling the calls for the lion's share of the business, and our team of experienced dispatchers now no longer have to involve him in every call for service. Jeff generally avoids me now at work, and I'm fine with that. The third story is called Attendance Policy Compliance. For 7 years I worked for a major internet provider in the United States. Most existing technicians were part of a union and had been for quite some time. They had an impressive array of benefits and an impressive hourly pay as well. To get around this, whenever this ISP rolled out a newer fiber-based internet, TV and phone, they would create a new technician position for completing the installs and repairs. Since this new position wasn't covered by the union contract yet, it has to be voted on and whatnot, the ISP would get a year or two of running these guys ragged for minimal pay and benefits. I was one of those guys hired on for less than I was making as a department manager working retail in order to work 50 to 60 hour weeks. Once we joined the union, it came with better benefits and pay, but some things got weird. We were an addendum in the contract that covered the old-timers, and as such, a lot of our rules weren't really specified. Honestly, it felt at times that our position's benefits were used as a bargaining chip by the old guard to get what they wanted, but I guess that isn't really what is important to the story. What is important to the story is that we didn't have an official attendance policy at all. Whenever you will look up the attendance policy in the handbook, it would tell you to see your manager for details. I finally managed to get a copy of what the manager's handbook said, and it wasn't good. Basically, it recommended using common sense when deciding attendance discipline. Our local managers interpreted this to mean advance to the next step of discipline, unless it was literally illegal to do so. This led to some weird situations. One time, after a particularly long install in the southern summer, running lines through an attic, I wasn't feeling too well. Definitely signs of dehydration. A headache, dizziness, wasn't thinking clearly. I called up my boss and said I need to pack it in for the day. He hummed and hawed over it and didn't sound happy. But after reminding him that we were constantly told safety is our responsibility, aka if something goes wrong and must have been our fault, he allowed me to return to the garage. Once I was at the garage, however, he told me that in order to not count as a complete absence, I need to go to the doctor and file for Family Medical Leave Act. This was one of my first malicious compliances, because in order to qualify for FMLA, you have to miss at least 3 days. So, because they wanted to put up a stink about it, I went to the doctor, gave him the paperwork and took the next 3 days off. Turns out I was, to absolutely no shock to me, denied FMLA. Fortunately, when they tried to write me up for attendance, I pointed out that not only did I have permission to stop working that day before returning to the garage, but I was following their instructions by filing for FMLA. They tried to say, in that case we'll only keep the write-up on file for 90 days and then remove it if you don't have any other absences. But the union rep didn't buy that one either. The write-up got torn up before we left the office. But the whole experience taught me a real lesson about how they handled sick days and occurrences. We got 5 paid sick days, but they weren't excused sick days, which meant you could be fired before even using them all, since management decided each absence was an instant step of discipline regardless of the reason, despite their guidelines saying to use common sense. But there was a catch: concurrent absences only counted as one occurrence. Missed one day? That was one occurrence. Missed 5 days in a row? Still only one occurrence, even if it was separated by a scheduled day off. It was the one rule that was specified in the manager's guidelines. You can bet I sure as heck shared that information with all the other technicians. If you were out a single day due to illness, you might as well take an entire week off with pay, because you will never get to use that time otherwise. The managers hated me for it, but I was a bit bitter over the whole FMLA thing and would share that info every single time it came up. They would threaten to write me up for insubordination, but I would just tell them we could discuss it in the presence of my union. After all I was doing was sharing information on the attendance policy, the same policy that they used to screw us every chance they go. The last story is called Know-It-All Gets to Learn His Lesson. This story comes all the way from the late 90s, when I was the chief editor of my high school's literary magazine. I had been more of an artist all my life, but in senior year my love for English, editing and creative writing really blossomed. We paired students' prose and poetry submissions with other students' artwork. After a long year of working on the magazine, it was finally time to take it to the printers. This print shop had worked with our high school for about 20 years, and the chief printer had excellent advice. But he kind of acted like a know-it-all and hated to be second-guessed. We were working on captions for the illustrations when he came across a canvas board painting. He said some kind words about it and then scribbled a note, acrylic painting, before putting the work on a separate pile. "Oh, I'm sorry, that's an oil painting," I meekly said. The guy regarded me over his half-moon glasses. "Young man, I've been doing this work for 20 years, and that," he jabbed a pencil towards the painting, "is an acrylic." "It's kinda not though," I said, but before I could say anything else, he huffed angrily and set the painting back over to our side of the counter. "Go talk to the artist," he said to the club advisor, "to double check that it's an acrylic and get them to sign off on it, then we'll print it." My advisor, without missing a heartbeat, turned to me and asked, "Hey, is this an acrylic?" "Nope," I said, and signed the release form he placed in front of her. "It's an oil painting." Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. It really helps in the algorithm. Have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.